I started out growing up in New York. My family fled from Eastern Europe to come here and fled the Holocaust. And I spent my childhood in places like MoMA and the Met, galleries up and down Madison Avenue, Soho, which was just becoming an interesting place. And having this kind of very kind of haute bourgeois life that was, I got Artur Rubinstein's autograph, I got Vladimir Horowitz's autograph, I collected high-end wine labels, I went to the opera quite regularly, tours of Europe, so ruins, museums, so on and so forth, and ultimately ended up going to graduate school to study literary criticism. And I now produce reality shows. And the two, I think, are connected, as is my return here, is that I think that notions of highbrow and lowbrow have always been associated with, and this is the dangerous little bit of cultural criticism and post-structuralist knowledge that I learned in graduate school before fleeing for my life, is that notions of highbrow and lowbrow have always been associated with power. And that a lot of what we now associate as high or high middlebrow culture really was related to control. And this may be apocryphal, but I don't think so. That right around the period of the fall of the Berlin Wall, that Eastern Europe, which really had almost no access to popular culture at the time, immediately embraced this movie.
Angel Beach High Gang is at it again.
They're sick. They're perverted. They're retarded.
Well, we've got something you'll all want to see.
They're into photography, water sports, and good, clean fun. But the party's over, because Porky and his thugs are after the coach.
I'll talk to Porky. I can get the rest of the money in about...
Anyway, you got the idea. So that was Porky's 4. And I remember very much at the time of the high and low exhibit that the idea of high and low itself was something that was taken with great seriousness. I remember the Hilton Kramer review of this show was one of the most hilarious things that I ever read. And sort of that started to change for me because I started to question why was I trapped in this dichotomy between high and low. And some of my thinking about that was affected by a really terrific book that I think is still highly relevant by John Seabrook called No Brow, which really introduced this idea of, well, why are we making these artificial distinctions between high and low? Why can't things be good because they're good or bad because they're bad? But it also posited the question of basically on what basis and how do we determine what is good and bad? And what is the language that we're able to use to determine that? I think the piece that's not spoken, as much about is the question of who's the gatekeeper, who's allowed to make these decisions, and I think that the passage of digital technology and the increase of digital technology has caused there to be less attention paid to the people who are traditional gatekeepers, from food critics to architecture critics. Everyone now is a critic. Everyone now is a curator. Everyone now has the ability to become a gatekeeper of one. And where does that leave the traditional gatekeeper? There's now so much, and the role I think that is really useful is to find out what's interesting. Where's Waldo? So what is a new language that gets us past high and low?
It's terrible. It's hardly even music. It just sounds like crap.
Sharon, come on. Don't you remember being younger and having our parents say the music we like sounded like crap?
Fine, Randy. You go listen to it and tell me you don't think it sounds like crap.
I'd love to.
Well, it sounds like crap, right?
No, I mean, I like it.
So the difficulty of this is the episode of South Park that was about something called Tween Wave, and really was making fun of an artist called Skrillex, who produces music that sounds like variously been called rumble strips, construction noise, and really nobody over the age of 16 understands why anybody likes this guy. So I think the trick is really now not what is acceptable in high culture, but it's basically how do we understand a culture that's increasingly matrixed and increasingly comprised of tribes and of people that are operating within their own very narrow compartments and are speaking a language that other people can't understand. And that to me is, I think, the new challenge. And I was walking up 6th Avenue and I passed Umami Burger. And I was thinking, okay, well, what is umami and what is taste? And umami to me is almost indefinable, but you know it when you see it. And it seems to me that we should be moving towards an idea where we're trying to define cultural umami, where we're no longer focused on ideas of high and low. We're no longer, sort of limited by saying what is art, but it's really trying to get to a certain kind of joy and a certain kind of understanding of what is beautiful and what is amazing and what gives us that kind of mysterious taste of umami, and that can live anywhere along the spectrum. So,